began at the old college in Chislehurst, where we either had to grow or close down and be merged with one of the other higher education or further education colleges.
The main cause, I think, from my end, was to say we need to reinvent ourselves in some way. And we probably can't reinvent ourselves here.
We couldn't really manipulate the old building into a new Ravensbourne, and that began the thinking where we said, why don't we sell this very, very expensive area of land and buy or build something new?
One of the main effects of moving from Chislehurst to Greenwich was actually to engage the institution much more closely with the communities of design, media and communication in London. I think it works very well with the plans of the peninsula to make the college connected to the city.
The thinking around the master plan was to create a tip of the peninsula leisure-orientated zone. The value of Ravensbourne was to increase the footfall for the O2, but more importantly, absolutely, to drive forward commercial development.
They've got an organisation there that's buzzy, that actually complements what's happening in that square. I always saw it as a cultural quarter where post-production houses might go and complement what's happening in the O2. Live, work, you could see that happening.
My life's ambition, my passion is to make the peninsula work. How do we create an integrated community so it becomes a live, work and play community to make the whole thing sustainable over a long period of time? I believe Ravensbourne has an integral part to play in that. This is the modern and contemporary offer for the borough of Greenwich and absolutely a driver for prosperity in South East London.
The relocation project was going to be used to accelerate change or instigate change. So it was using design as an enabler of change. And I was very interested in that. I would support that and support design being able to do that.
If you think of creative education in this country, you would expect it to be on the edge of everything. It's not. I mean, it's very traditional. It's done in a very 19th century way, in a very 19th century environments, you know. And yes, people have modern buildings, but they don't have a modern institution. And my view was you have a new building and a new institution, and that drove me quite hard.
The vision was very much about digital, just in time, not just in case, so not having things sitting idle, that things are utilised, that you get high-level utilisation of space, resources, people, activities, and that required quite a lot of thought.
What are the exciting, what are the challenging things, what are the creative things that you could do with digital technology that you could not do before? And so, in a way, it disrupts your traditional way of doing things. And I think that's important in a creative environment where you should be doing things that you haven't done before.
Call Ravensbourne a destination, a digital destination. I guess in Chislehurst we were a very big fish that didn't even have a pool. And now we're a medium-sized fish in a very, very large pool.
The college was punching above its weight in terms of doing the project in the first place, and I think it's extraordinary to achieve it. It was competing, or not competing, but sitting in a difficult situation with the dome.
So I was very interested to see how do you create a new university in this new location, which is evolving and rapidly changing, and it's got a couple of big landmark and suddenly the O2 immediately next to it. So how do you set yourself up against that as a background? And I think the architect did a very stunning job, created another landmark here, which doesn't compete with the O2 Centre and is quite striking.
The concept of the facade came out of saying, okay, we want to have something, an envelope that is abstract enough to stand in front of the dome without suddenly putting something of a kind of human scale next to something of a no scale or a huge scale for a crowd.
Part of the reason this building is so interesting to people is its external form and its internal arrangement. I think there's an element of wanting to push the boundary for the architects.
This is, if you like, the best position to get a sense of how the building's constructed. I hope you haven't got vertigo, but here's the north-facing atrium, very much the public-facing atrium. It's the area you saw when you came in. You lean that way and you can see the south-facing atrium, which we'll go into next.
It was also quite interesting. It's got these two big atria and a sort of free-flowing feeling to it.
Internally speaking, the building has these two areas that have a split level system, so they are half a level up or down, so you constantly have this kind of diagonal movement through the building and openness because they are all looking onto the two atria.
What you've got are very open spaces where everybody can see what is going on. And so when you get a fashion designer working next to a broadcast engineer, it's quite interesting to see that interaction. If you've got a set of disciplines that traditionally are very siloed, as you begin to open them up, you find really interesting bits between them. You should build, I think, on those merging areas, the interdisciplinary part, where the technology links you rather than separates you. And so if you've got an environment that encourages the spaces in between, then you're getting somewhere, really.
So actually spaces that allow for those things to happen is when you get something animated.
How far do students have to travel then to get here?
Korea. Thank you. Students come from all over the place. I think we've got in excess of 50 different nationalities. Another thing that's interesting about Ravensbourne is sharing. People from other departments can come and hear you lecture and present. It's about a form of collaboration and the gaining of information.
There were a lot of theories about how 21st higher education and creative industries could happen, but there were very few examples of, well, this is how it could be done. Since we opened, we've had over 1,000 visitors. What's interesting is I think that people are looking for models. They want to see how it could be. But I insist this is not a formula. This is not a recipe for you. This worked for us at that time in London in this position. Now, there will be other institutions who will take it on. But that's fantastic. I mean, I think that's great. You know, I'm hoping to see that some of these happen where they're building on what we started, because it's not finished. It's nowhere near finished.
We met the architects and they gave us a tour. We met the client as well, and they were able to tell us, both the architect and the client, what they were trying to achieve with the building. I did vote for it, certainly. I thought there was so much innovation, and the building itself is so exciting. It's unusual, it's not been done before. You don't feel like it's room after room after room of teaching, but there's lots of spaces to get together. There's amazing facilities. So I think it's well worth the award.
This building is going to last for another 50, 100 years, and you just want to try and allow as much to happen as possible. That building, for me, is about events, learning as a social experience. I think Ravensbourne students are great, and I think they grab hold of that, and I think they start using things in ways that hadn't been anticipated. It could only happen there because it's Ravensbourne.
And the great thing, and the thing I will hold on to forever, and I do firmly believe Ravensbourne as an institution and its talent is undeniable. And one of the great selling points for me, both locally and regionally and internationally, was, look, you know, whatever you get at the end of the day, you know it's going to be good.
It's just really exciting to be able to explain to people how we invented these spaces and the thinking that went behind it and why we did it. So I enjoy that more than any particular space because every space is different.
And that really is how it's evolved over its time through wanting to move, through finding a place, getting an award-winning building, which helped, and then moving in, inaugurating it, and seeing it come to fruition. That's what has been the best thing I ever did.